walked into the hospital room, told my mother and father the little girl's going to make it, but I don't think the little boy's going to make it. And you know that my mother told me the story that my pediatrician, which she said to him, I want you, please, to be at the hospital when the twins are born. He apparently had just established a pediatrician's office. He didn't have a lot of patients, meaning clients. So he could be there. So when I came out, apparently he scooped me up and took me down to the nursery, and they put me in an incubator, and apparently he sat in a rocking chair next to me for hours. And every time I stopped breathing, he would jiggle me. Now, if he had not been there, the chances are pretty high I wouldn't be here. But it was just by chance. There happened to be a pediatrician who had very few clients and therefore could be there that day. That was all by chance, right? No, it was not. Providential. Everything that has brought me to this point has been not of my doing. I mean, does the Lord honor hard work and perseverance and, the good character traits that you can develop? Yeah. But all of this is providential. Why? Because God knew that I would come along at a time when the church in America, as we call it, would fail. And you want to know why we're being blessed? Because we're obeying his word. We're teaching the book of Revelation, which come for a special blessing. We're talking about the Jewish people, and we're picking up the slack for the churches in America that have failed. But it's all being done providentially. Take care.
Colonel Rob Maness has a lifelong record of providing dedicated service to this nation. Having worked his way up from the enlisted ranks to full colonel, he served our country for more than 32 years. He has served as a bomber squadron commander, bomb disposal technician, Joint Chiefs of Staff Operations Officer, assisted the National Security Team with the campaign plan for the global war on terrorism. He authored the first theater nuclear war plan, and served as the Vice Commander of America's largest airborne intelligence wing. Colonel Rob Maness is a true American hero. This is Rob Maness Live.
So you're down at the border, you're the commander, the Green Beret flight surgeon.
I'm the head of all medical services on the border, correct.
But medically, in terms of COVID.
I was a task force surgeon.
And were you supposed to be giving guys shots?
I was ordered to allow the shot teams to give shots. I allowed the shot teams to return back to Austin.
You allowed them or you told them?
I told them that these are not approved vaccines.
Well, which was true.
Which was true.
And so, okay, the whole idea is that if you have an emergency use
EUA
authorization, that it's not a normal vaccine, hasn't been through the normal,
absolutely,
protocols,
right.
And therefore there's an exception, right? And that exception is that you need to be told what?
Well, you must have an informed consent, but you can have two different types of exceptions, if you will. Medical waiver, right? If there's a reason why they shouldn't have that due to the side effects. We didn't have that history yet, so EUA. Or if you have a religious waiver, if there's something in the product that goes against whatever religious belief that they have.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's it. The command says to me, in writing, which was not good for them, if there's a medical waiver, they want a medical waiver, it'll be denied. And if they want a religious waiver, quote unquote, it ain't going to happen.
Wow.
In writing.
That's illegal.
Absolutely. Plus it's a caddy. But that made it into the court record in the Seals versus DOD case in Tampa at a circuit court just underneath the Supreme Court. I testified to it. Because
that was when SEALs were, they had demanded.
They wanted to have a religious waiver.
Right, and they were denied that
SEALs
religious waiver.
and a few Marines, yes.
And they won that case.
Absolutely won that case.
Yeah.
However, because the mandate came down, it took a while to fight that case. I was the first.
It took years to fight
correct.
that case.
I was the first person to testify on the stand. We did talk about the Defense Medical Epidemiology Database.
Yeah.
Which showed that there was an 1,100% rise in neurologic disorders. They didn't want that entered into the case. They didn't want it. So it was a fight. It was a fight to get that in.
And that was the data that you...
Teresa Long had called me on the border and said, hey, you don't know
Teresa
about this. Dr. Teresa Long is a lieutenant colonel out of Fort Rucker, Alabama. She's one of the 4 whistleblowers.
Right.
So there was a Senator
DOD,
Johnson.
there were 4 whistleblowers.
Correct.
Yeah.
Senator Johnson reached out to us. So we had Sam Sigaloff, a captain, a major, and then Lieutenant Mark Bashaw, and Teresa Long, Lieutenant Colonel, and me. And so I was the guy that had the largest deployment of U.S. troops in the country at that time on the southern border since 1812. And I had that many troops that I was responsible for.
And none of them wanted to get vaccinated.
I had 7 people say that they wanted to take them after they heard my informed consent briefs out of 3,000 informed consents.
Wow.
Welcome back to True Thursday, folks. The Rob Maness Show's live on Worldview Tube and our X Spaces simulcast. Well, do the president's and the SecDef's orders on the unlawful COVID implementation really matter? I'm getting the distinct impression that they don't. As our friend J.M. Phelps said at the Gateway Pundit when he wrote not too long ago, quote, despite efforts by President Trump and SecDef Hegseth to restore the military following an unlawful COVID-19 shot mandate, service members are still getting booted for their objection. On January 27th, President Donald Trump signed an executive order to reinstate service members who were separated from the military for objecting to the now rescinded 2021 COVID-19 shot mandate. For the thousands who refused the shot and were booted from the service, full pay and benefits are supposed to be being offered and restored. And on 7th of May, Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth energized the military community, calling the mandate, and I quote, unlawful as implemented, close quote, in a memo sent to the Department of Defense leadership. But despite the president's executive order and Hegseth's memo, service members who remain within the military are still being separated. Let that sink in. Take, for example, Chief Warrant Officer 3, Brandon Budge. After 18 years of honorable service in the Army as a Black Hawk helicopter pilot, CW3 Budge objected to the so-called vaccine in 2021 due to concerns about his health, and he was punished for it. That's what J.M. Phelps said just days ago. Well, Warrant Officer Budge is my guest today to discuss this situation, and since he is on active duty, here's the disclaimer again. His views are his own and do not represent the Department of the Army or the Department of Defense. And for that matter, neither do mine. Brandon, welcome to the Rob Maness Show.
Thanks for having me.
It's good to have you on, my friend. Thank you so much for giving us an hour of your time to talk about this and your situation. That was Doc Pete Chambers there with Lara Logan in an interview that he did not too long ago. Doc Chambers is a Special Forces Lieutenant Colonel, retired U.S. Army. He was talking about his experience in having to implement this vaccine mandate there and the issues associated with it. And the thing that struck me and why I played that was that he was told as a commander and a medical officer, there will be no medical exemptions and no religious accommodations. And that was put into court records. Thankfully, it was, because that's part of the unlawfulness of this implementation, isn't it?
Absolutely. No, you can't force people to be guinea pigs for something that is labeled as an emergency use authorization. That means it's been rushed through, and even the company, the FDA, have not had the opportunity to screen it for side effects and for potential dangers.
Yeah. So tell the audience about your story and what led you to a decision to push back on this.
My story started actually around March of 2021. I had actually contracted COVID. As far as the test was concerned, I was called by a nurse from Madigan Army Hospital to tell me that I had tested positive for COVID. And then it was after that the shots started to be kind of crammed down everybody's throats. And my concern was for my health. There were guys that were complaining of chest pains and different things, young guys. And so it was not it did not seem prudent either, since I had already had COVID, to then have a shot. I mean, that seems like uh, it's not necessary when I'm not a doctor, but since I've already had it, I imagine that that would preclude me from having to also have a vaccine because I already have natural immunity. So that, combined with the dangers that came with the shot itself, I pushed back, and in fact, um, I pushed back enough that in a recent FOIA request that I got, most of it was redacted. I've had to sue the Department of the Army to even get the FOIA requests that I requested years ago. Um, it was enough that my company commander made mention of it when he was interviewed by somebody selected by the local IG office to conduct an investigation, that I had annoyed him about the vaccine, or that I had pushed back on it, that I was opposed to it. You know, the my medical provider as well. He used the word annoyed. I had been annoying him about the vaccine, and this is my primary care provider. And at that time, I had never spoken to him about the vaccine, so my objections to it reached far and wide, and they were enough to get people's attention. So much so that in July of 21, the command had lifted the required mask mandates,
Mhm.
and I was forced by my company commander to continue to wear a mask in the hangar. The hangar is a huge space, and if everybody's vaccinated but me, what's the big deal? Everybody should be immune to it, right? Plus, I had it,
Uh,
and so I actually pushed back against that as well. And I was called into his office, and I was told in no uncertain terms, the term that he used was, "If I catch you without a mask again, I will effing ruin your career." And
mm,
that was the level that people went to. At that time, I'd had just shy of 18 years in the military. I had been a linguist for the Navy. I held a top secret clearance. I had become a Black Hawk pilot. I worked mostly in air assault units, and then I became a maintenance test pilot. On top of that, I had flown alphas. And these are for everybody watching, an alpha model, Lima model. These are different models of Black Hawks. The alphas are the
right.
oldest, and then it goes to Limas and then to Mikes. You know, and most of the new guys, they've only flown Mike model aircraft. And so I had an additional set of skills that I would think would be useful to the Army, but they were more concerned with a shot, it seemed like, in this mandate, than they were with what they were losing: combat time, combat
Mm.
flight hours, combat experience. Not just me, but everybody knows tens of thousands of individuals um, were affected by this. And then I was given orders to Korea, to PCS. And when I called the command in Korea, obviously somebody had made them aware that I had not received the vaccine. And so
Mhm.
the individual there that I spoke with at the time told me that I needed to think long and hard about not having the vaccine. My wife was pregnant at the time. She was in her late 30s, and she had already had early significant complications. And this individual made it very clear. The sentence he used was that if I did not get vaccinated, that there was, and something happened to my wife, it would not, he said, it would not matter if she's on her deathbed. You will not return from Korea. You cannot bypass the quarantine requirements. And so it
Mm.
was at that moment, that was in August of 21, that I decided I would get vaccinated. The rest of my family's never been, but it was either that, or if something happened with my wife, we
Mhm.
we would be out of luck. I wouldn't be able to come home. I wouldn't be able to uh, help with the baby or the complications. And just the fact that they had said that it didn't matter if she was on her deathbed, that meant to me that this shot was more important to the military than was my wife or myself or our health.
Yeah.
That's what.
So Brandon, as a former flying squadron commander in the Air Force,
Uh-huh.
let me ask some questions about the unit. Uh, your company commander is a pilot, rated pilot,
The
correct?
company commander was, yeah, he was a
Was
pilot.
your was your primary care a flight surgeon?
He was.
Okay, so that just framed my question for the audience there. So My biggest challenge in peacetime, in garrison at home, is one of them is safety as a squadron commander. You're rocking the metrics and paying attention to that. Wasn't the safety system and the flight doc system sending signals to the commanders about the risks involved with this vaccine?
As far as I understood, of course, we're never privy at that level to all of the conversations that go back and forth. But as far as I understood, people were completely and totally on board with it, which is interesting because that was one of the concerns with your health is we know that takeoffs are optional, landings are not.
Right.
And so if something were to happen to me or another pilot, those individuals on that aircraft are relying on us to get to the ground safely. And if I can't perform that duty because of something that was forced on me, side effect, then those individuals have nobody to rely on. And they're at the mercy of whatever happens following that incident, if it were to occur. And so it just did not make sense, especially several of us had already had COVID. Why would we then take a vaccine? If we have COVID and we do just fine, we come through it, we've got natural immunity. What's the point in the follow-on shot? And if they were actually concerned about immunity, then why was the shot necessary? Were they more concerned about the mandate and enforcing it than they were the medical side of things? And that's what it seemed like at the time. And that's the unfortunate part.
We got to take a commercial break here. When we come back, I want to continue talking about this vaccine safety thing. I think I've got a clip from Dr. Teresa Long, who's the flight surgeon, Army flight surgeon at Fort Rucker, Alabama, where helicopter training is done. Basic helicopter training is done. And her words are very interesting in this clip. I'll be right back with CW3 Brandon Budge.
You woke up with a sore throat and a low-grade fever. You know you are getting sick, so here's your choices. You can get sicker and miss work. Try to see a doctor this week or sit hours in a crowded waiting room at urgent care.
I have a smarter option for you. Open your medical emergency kit. Match your symptoms to doctor-recommended prescription in your booklet and take the right meds now and get well faster.
This is not a first aid kit. It's like having an urgent care in your home. It includes doctor-prescribed medications to treat over 39 medical issues like respiratory infections, strep throat, pneumonia, UTIs, and more.
No waiting to see the doctor and no standing in line at the pharmacy. It's right here.
Every home should have at least one medical emergency kit, and here's how to order.
Go to worldviewhealthcare.com. Your kit to treat dozens of common and serious illnesses is rushed to your door. worldviewhealthcare.com. That's worldviewhealthcare.com.
The emergency kit available at worldviewhealthcare.com. Make sure you don't have to go to urgent care. I got pneumonia. I didn't have to go. I took this last year. Stayed at home. Went to bed.
With respect to aviation safety, risk communication is critical. I saw 5 patients in clinic, 2 of which presented with chest pain days to weeks after vaccination and were subsequently diagnosed with pericarditis and worked up to rule out myocarditis. The 3rd pilot had been vaccinated and felt like he was drunk, chronically fatigued within 24 hours after vaccination. The pilot told me he didn't know what to do, so he drank a lot of coffee to try and, quote, wake himself up and continued to fly until he realized it wasn't going away. After I reported to my command my concerns that in one morning I had to ground 3 out of 3 pilots due to vaccine injuries, the next day my patients were canceled, my charts were pulled for review, and I was told that I would not be seeing acute patients anymore, just healthy pilots there for their flight physical.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. It's Truth Thursday, and we're continuing our series. We're going to do a series of shows with individuals that are either still on active duty or on active reserve status or in the National Guard that are facing discharge over this COVID vaccine mandate, even though the President and the Secretary of Defense have issued written orders to stop to stop this from happening, these unlawful implementations of this. This is still going on. And my guest today is Warrant Officer Brandon Budge, who's a Black Hawk helicopter pilot with over 18 years of honorable service, no flaws in his service record. And he's facing discharge here in a month and a half or so. And that's not right. So we've got to get this story out. These stories, please share it when the post-production version of this show comes out this evening. Please go share it. Share it with Secretary of Defense Hegseth, Secretary of the Army Driscoll, and President of the United States, and the spokespeople for both of them on X. Please share it, because we know that folks look at our accounts, and we have to get the numbers up to get this message out, because that right there was the senior flight surgeon, Dr. Teresa Long. I believe she was the senior flight surgeon at Fort Rucker, Alabama, where basic pilot helicopter training is done for the United States Army, and the other services too, I believe. It's still done there. And she was stopped from reporting life-threatening adverse reactions in U.S. Army pilots. Think about that. She was stopped from adequately reporting that and continuing to see patients after she had put 3 in a row in one day on duties not to include flying. The short phrase for that is DNIF. So welcome back, Brandon. And that's why I was asking you about that question about the commander and the flight surgeon and the safety system and the aviation medical system, because Dr. Long's reporting should have been placed into the pipeline of the system that eventually gets down to the air crews, so that they're aware of the issues in the situation and be on the lookout for symptoms and those kind of things, so we don't have an accident. That's highly concerning that was happening, but apparently it was. You never received as an aviator while you were still flying. I'm assuming they'd taken you off flying status, but you can correct me if I'm wrong about that. But as an aviator, you should be at the receiving end of these types of notifications, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm off flying status now in preparation for getting out of the Army. And I've got almost 22 years at this time. But the reason I'm being forced out is because I had been selected for Chief Warrant Officer 4. And because of the General Officer's Memorandum of Reprimand that was put in my file, that I had to go through what's called a Special Selections Review Board. So nearly 18 years when I was selected for W4, I had a sequence number. I had nothing on my record that was in any way negative. So my record was nice and clean. I got selected for promotion, and that was taken away. And so now I'm considered a 2-time passover, and so I have no choice but to get out. It wouldn't matter if I wanted to continue to serve or not. It wouldn't matter if I was flying. And as a maintenance test pilot, you can teach the class, you can teach the aircraft, but you can't replace the experience.
That's right.
You can't replace the familiarity with the aircraft. You can't replace somebody that's flown the Alpha Limas and the Mikes. You can't replace the combat experience that people are losing, that the Army's losing at the top. And so, yeah, Teresa, the Colonel Long, she was spot on. We can't. What was she supposed to do as an aviation, a flight doc? Was she supposed to stick these guys in an aircraft when they're complaining of chest pains? Like I said, you don't get second chances when you're flying an aircraft. If it crashes, it crashes. That's it. And
that's right.
Now there's that opportunity. I mean, we look at the crash, and not that this was related to COVID in any way, but the one in DC, and that the American Airlines flight, 67 people were killed. And I believe that's the worst Army aviation incident in history. So you have 67 people that are gone now because of one slight error. That's the fine line that we walk as aviators. And so when you put something foreign in our bodies, I mean, I'm not even supposed to drink drinks with ginseng. You know, if you look at the FAA regulations, you can't have more than a 0.4% blood alcohol level to fly. They have all of these regulations and stipulations, but then when it came to this shot, it kind of seemed to go out the window. So informed consent, um, the aviation side of things, it seemed like it was not important anymore.
Mm-hmm.
That they were just going to force this regardless, and so people paid the price for even questioning it. And we were isolated, we were removed, we were shunned. It was, um, and it felt like it was all aimed at creating this division that would force kind of people that were out in the cold because they had questions about this,
Mm-hmm.
that it would force them to comply.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very unfortunate. That's why I signed the Declaration of Military Accountability after Rob Greene wrote it and showed it to me, because it's more than unfortunate. It's disastrous. It's an abuse of power. It's an abuse of your civil rights, because if you put in a religious accommodation request, then the generals and the secretaries of the services were actually giving orders to say you will not approve those and you will not approve medical exemptions. That is against the law, especially on the religious accommodation, because the law explicitly states it has to be individually assessed by a certain type of chain of command, and everything else. So when the president and Secretary Hegseth issued the memos and the executive orders and said this was unlawfully implemented, what did you think was going to happen at the time?
The hope was is that we would be restored. That the general officer's memorandum of reprimand would be removed from my file. That seemed most prudent, and that I would W-4 would be restored to me. I'd get my back pay, and then I could continue to serve. In fact, I promised the chief of staff of the Army in a phone call that if I was restored, I would do everything that I could to stay on and help restore and go through and fix the careers of other individuals, because I'm completely and totally invested in this. We cannot run a lethal, efficient military if everybody at the top, if they're all leaving. I mean, just in my small circle, where I'm at now, where I'm working, including myself, um, there are 4 warrant officers that are maintenance test pilots that are for sure leaving. And then there's one other that's, I don't want to say he's on the fence. He said, and I can't speak for him, that he is retiring.
Wow.
So, I mean, these are all individuals that have been to combat. These are all individuals that will teach the next generation what combat looks like and the mistakes that have been made. You understand, sir. You were a commander, an AAR, after action review.
Yeah.
So those after action reviews, the lessons learned, who's going to pass those on? They can't be learned in a classroom. You just can't teach an aviator to be a combat aviator in a classroom. You have to have somebody that's there, that's done it, that can sit next to them, that can fly. I mean, it's the combat aviators that spent the last 2 decades in Iraq and Afghanistan that developed a lot of the techniques and the things that we used. I mean, just for simple a helicopter, something that maybe fixed wing guys don't totally understand, we do dust landings. Dust landings, they're brownouts. You don't see. So you have to understand the aircraft itself and how it's going to react. And then
Yeah.
if you put an aviator under a night vision goggle situation, now you've limited their field of view. They don't have depth perception anymore. If they are not accustomed to those goggles and the way that works, that now becomes a potential accident. And if
That's
you
right.
don't have somebody with experience sitting next to them and you've got, 5 or 6 or 8 or 10 guys in the back, what are you going to do? Are you going to take that chance at sending people out and potentially losing that aircraft and losing all of the individuals on board?
Yeah.
So we, I don't think that the individuals that could fix this understand the repercussions of continuing on the path that we're on right now,
Yeah.
which is individuals like myself leaving for good.
Exactly.
And when you leave with that bad taste in your mouth, you don't want to come back. If they offered you a civilian job, like, please come back, teach. Why would you come back to an organization that has no loyalty to you? You granted them. I've spent my entire adult life in the military, and so have a lot of other individuals. Why would I then knowing that I spent my entire adult life and that I was left out in the cold, why would I come back and offer them more of my life when I know that the next thing that comes along, I'm going to be on the chopping block. I'm going to be sacrificed to whatever potential cult mentality takes hold at that time. You know,
Yeah.
these are my opinions, and this is the way that I process this. And I'm sure that there are others that probably feel the same.
Yeah. Well, you said you talked to the chief of staff of the Army. I'm assuming the current one. Isn't he committed to making this right with guys like you?
I can't speak for him. I wish you were here and we could all have a discussion together. It was a short conversation. What I can say is I would hope that he was committed, because the Army is going through an Army modernization process. They're going through, they're trying to reestablish lethality. They're trying to reestablish efficiency. They're trying to cut costs, especially in Army aviation. Army aviation is a massive part of the Army's budget. And if they can't figure out how to cut these costs, I mean, Army aviation could go the way of the dodo, the extinct animals, be the thing that gets put on the chopping block. And so they need individuals like myself. I mean, I know the intricacies, the in and outs of a Black Hawk. I understand systems. I understand what fails. And it's individuals like myself that have had this experience that will help shape the future of Army aviation. If you get rid of us and you replace us with guys that are just out of flight school, W1s, W2s, what do they know? How are they going to understand the aircraft? How are they going to pass along these lessons learned? It's not going to happen. And so I would hope that General George is committed. I know him from previous time. I flew him around a few times. I gave me his coin. He survived the flights. So we went out to the reservation. It's the area, JBLM. I took him to, I think it was YTC. There was a unit out in the field there, and I flew him back. And the reason I was chosen by my company commander, myself, and one other pilot named Greg Davis is because of our experience. At the time, we were the senior most. But I also had the best maintenance record in all of the battalion at the time.
Wow. Well, we got to take another break. When we come back, I want to keep talking about this and talk about the process that maybe they offered up to you, even though you're still on active duty, Brandon, because I think it's important that people understand how the process is impacting you or not, and whether it's effective or not, because there's a lot of questions still out there. We'll be right back with CW3 Brandon Budge, Black Hawk helicopter pilot, United States Army, on the verge of being kicked out again, and it's all due still to the COVID mandate that was unlawfully implemented. We'll be right back.
Hello, I'm Brandon House. I want to thank you for all your support at wvwfoundation.com that helps make possible pushing out 24/7 content for free. Without your support, we'd have to put it all behind a paywall. But thanks to you and your support through our foundation, we're able to push it out for free as a broadcast service and broadcast ministry of WVW Foundation. Please consider going there and setting up an automatic monthly contribution, or go there and make an occasional contribution. If you prefer to support us through the mail, you'll find our mailing address there at wvwfoundation.com. You can also call and make your contribution over the phone by calling 901-825-0652. That's 901-825-0652. Again, all these details are available at wvwfoundation.com. Thank you for your support as we try to help people around the world understand the times through the lens of a Christian worldview.
We're also welcoming back former service members who were wrongly forced to leave the military. More than 8,700 service members were involuntarily separated for not taking an experimental COVID-19 vaccine. Others were more informally pushed out or decided to get out. We are welcoming actively back those warriors of conscience. We've sent letters out. We're seeking them out. We want them back. They never should have been forced to come back quickly. Personnel and Readiness Department is working in real time to make that process more and more efficient, more and more direct every single day.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. It's Truth Thursday, and for the second day this week, we're getting the truth out about vaccine mandate orders in the U.S. military, the things that are going on, and personnel that are on active duty or active in the Guard or Reserve still that are being impacted by these unlawfully implemented directives, orders, and those kind of things. And my guest today is Army helicopter pilot CW3 Brandon Budge. And Brandon, although you're not out yet, I'm assuming that you could take advantage of the process, the policy wonks in Undersecretary of Defense for Personnel Readiness memo drives people to the Board of the Correction of Military Records. Have you done anything with that process yet to try to get your records corrected to intercept this pending discharge?
I did, and my first attempt was denied, and I did have some help from individuals at the Pentagon, which I'm grateful for. But even with their assistance, even with the assistance of, and General George has been pretty hands-off with this. I haven't spoken to him since, just the one time. But they were able to get my packet pushed through to the BCMR, but the BCMR denied it pretty quick, and it was before the 7 May memo. And there was, if I remember correctly, one of the reasons was lack of evidence. But we've seen other BCMR denials pop up. I believe Jordan Carr, I'm sure she can speak for herself. I believe she had some issues with it. There were multiple individuals that posted on X that had issues with the BCMR, but it's not a surprise. When you put an old guard style organization in charge of executing this order, it doesn't matter if the chief of staff of the Army says that this needs to happen or gives his thumbs up, hey, I'm supporting this. They get to do what they want to do.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I was shocked and dismayed that the personnel and readiness guys put the onus on the BCMRs because that is the most archaic, slow, and unfair, and most likely to give the wrong decision bureaucratic office that could have been given this task. Now, you said that was before the 7 May memo. I've got a couple of hands in my live audience. I want to give them a chance to ask some questions here. But did you resubmit after the 7 May memo?
I did. I got help from Davis Yance, and he's been great. He's been great for a lot of people. And he's got a good track record there, and he put together a great packet, and it was resubmitted. Last time I got a call from the BCMR letting me know that they had received my packet. This time it's been, 6 weeks, maybe a little bit more, and I've not heard a thing from them. And so you think about it, people don't understand. It's 10 to 18 months if you look at their website for them to look at and make a ruling on a packet. I'll be long gone in 10 to 18 months. So they create more work because say somebody like myself, in 18 months, they're like, all right, you can come back now. Now you've got to go back and reverse the separation. You've got to reverse. Plus, I've been out for that long. That was time towards promotion that's gone. It's just, it creates more problems than it fixes, and it really doesn't fix anything. So I would love to talk to General George again. I would love to talk to Pete Hegseth. I don't know if you're aware, I issued him a physical challenge on X, just in the spirit of Army camaraderie, a 24-hour race. He's not responded, so I offered to do something much shorter, just in case. I don't know if he's a little nervous or just too busy, but I offered to do something shorter. And in this case, this is I think about the Bible, and Christ talks about leaving the 99 for the one. This is an opportunity for Secretary Hegseth, for President Trump, who feels like, I've listened to his interviews, he feels like God preserved him for this time, for this opportunity to fix the nation, to get things moving in the right direction. This is his opportunity. This is both of their opportunity to leave the 99 to go after the ones that were affected by this illegal mandate. You've declared it illegal. This is your opportunity to directly intervene. It wouldn't require anything massive. It would be much quicker than a BCMR or anything like that. I know the STARS mission, they've sent a request for amnesty to the president to be signed, and as far as I understand, nothing's been returned to them yet. There's been no word, and so we could just completely and totally remove the bureaucracy from the entire situation. I know for a fact, because I sent it, that the ComCap, I'm not sure if you're aware of that, that was created by other individuals much smarter than myself that would fix all of this. That was sent to Secretary Hegseth directly, and he has yet to respond to it or even acknowledge it. This is an opportunity to fix something, and that's what we're good at, right? As military leaders, as military officers, is finding solutions to problems. You can't think. So many times I had helicopters in Australia where I could not get parts, but I was able to keep each one of them flying by myself because I was able to do what was necessary. We come up with solutions. We've come up with a solution. Listen, we're here to help you. We're here. I will absolutely run for 24 hours if it will get your attention, whatever is necessary to help everybody that was affected. I don't care the eight means, whatever it takes.
Yeah, I mean, the commander's intent is clear. The Secretary of Defense's intent is clear. It's in writing. It's just having the right leaders at the right level to fully implement it, and that's what's not happening. There are things being put into the gears here, and I'm not going to assign intent, but I am going to assign my own disappointment, having worked with all those organizations that you just talked about before on things like CONCAP and this issue. It is very disappointing that we can't get leaders stepping out and aggressively implementing this policy to help people like you. Because here's what's going to happen to you, Brandon, and then I'm going to go to the audience for a question. What's going to happen to you if this is not intervened with through the BCMR now is you'll get discharged, and then say after you're discharged, they change things and say, okay, you can come back in. You're going to be told you have to go back through the BCMR process again, according to the memo that I've read, and even the updated memo that I've read. And that's the wrong treatment. And that's a problem because it's Secretary Hegseth, Mr. President, that is the continuation of this abusive treatment that the institutions that you have told to fix this are continuing to do. They're not following your orders, sirs. Let's go ahead and take a question from the audience. Shell is our host over there. Go ahead, Shell.
We have Colonel Gannon Burton, sir.
Yes, thank you for your courage and bravery for stepping up and telling the truth. My question goes to accountability, but it seems to me, especially after listening to this, that we're dealing with intransigence at the service level, service chief level, because I've seen the memos that you're talking about. I've seen the intent of the Secretary of Defense, but it seems to me like the general officers are not even acknowledging that we have vaccine injured in the military right now, right? So could you talk to that? I mean, is this and I don't want to put you on the spot because of what you can say. Maybe Colonel Maness can talk a little bit more, but is the military even acknowledging that we've injured people with the vaccine? And then Colonel Maness, are you seeing this intransigence from the General Officer Corps, which wants to kind of just sweep this under the rug and go along without ever getting accountability? Thank you.
Brandon, I'll let you take a stab at that first question if you would like to.
Yeah, in my own case, what it seems like is there's this desire to circle the wagons, and almost like if they bend or they give anything to the fact that there may have been vaccine injured people or people that's we talk about vaccine injuries. What about the individuals that were so isolated, they felt so desperate that they committed suicide because they lost everything that they had dedicated? Those people may not be directly vaccine injured, but I would imagine that that's something that could be counted as an injury. And so if you have individuals, if you have leadership they're afraid, they're concerned with admitting fault or admitting that they were wrong in the implementation of the policies that they were directed to implement, then they open themselves up for scrutiny. And so it seems like instead there is this circling of the wagons to protect everybody from what might happen if somebody were to step out of line and admit they were wrong in implementing this, and that people were injured either physically, emotionally, whatever may have happened because of the implementation process or the shot itself.
Yeah, and I'll take that second question. No, we haven't really seen much, and I've got a clip of the one that I know about that's documented in the opening of the next segment, Gannon, where the Army, that service has had to put in writing that the injuries from the vaccine were in the line of duty. But that's the only one that I'm absolutely sure of that's happened, and I think that the medical system has circled the wagons, like Brandon said. The generals in the JAG Corps got fired at the get-go of the Trump administration, so the JAG is circling the wagons. And then the line officer generals and admirals are trying to circle the wagons because it's about protecting the institution instead of protecting the Constitution and the constitutional rights of these soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, guardians, and Coast Guardsmen and women that have been abused. And they're ashamed of themselves in large part, in my opinion, and they don't want to accept that they need to face some consequences, and they're going to have to live with this for the rest of their lives. But that's nothing compared to what they're putting these families through. And when you have men and women like Brandon Budge, who has just said for 30 minutes now, 45 minutes now, over and over again, how he loves the United States Army. He's dedicated his life to it. He wants to stay because he wants to help the institution resolve this problem. But where are the strong, courageous, aggressive leadership leaders in uniform that will enable him to be able to do that? Enable him to be able to do that. That's what we need. We got to take our last break, Brandon. When we come back, we'll see a clip from that one soldier that we know where the service has acknowledged it's a vaccine injury. I'll be right back on Truth Thursday.
I am 24 years old. I have had 3 heart attacks, a mini stroke, and I am now getting a pacemaker.
According to this Army memo, your debilitating heart condition can be caused by either COVID-19 infection or the COVID-19 vaccine. Have you ever tested positive for COVID-19?
I don't have a single positive test for COVID-19.
So is this Army memo an acknowledgement that your heart condition is the result of the COVID vaccine?
It 100% is an acknowledgement that it was a result of a vaccine.
What was the cost of following orders?
I mean, it pretty much cost my whole life.
It's a sacred military pledge to leave no one behind. Were you left behind by the Army and the National Guard?
I was left behind and trampled. They watched it, they came back, walked all over me, and then left again.
That's a very serious charge.
I'm very serious when I say it.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. The title of that segment with Catherine Herridge and Army soldier, Carolina Stancic, was the cost of following orders. And that gets to one of our callers' questions about, has the Army acknowledged, or any of the services acknowledged, that vaccine injury? That's the one case that I know for sure. But it's indirect. It's indirect. They called it a line of duty thing, and you can only surmise it because she's never had COVID. So the only other cause, according to the Army memo, is the vaccine itself. And my guest today is Army helicopter pilot Brandon Budge, who's still on active duty but faces a discharge because of this unlawful implementation process of what we now know is an unlawful order that came down from the President of the United States to direct all military personnel to get the vaccine for COVID-19. And as we see now, it's causing many, many more challenges for the services, even though we now have a brand new president and secretary of defense and some new senior leadership. The folks that are having to implement this order to rectify this are having difficulty getting it right. And Brandon Budge, you're experiencing that process. I do want to question. I have a question for you before I take a question from the audience. Do you know anybody that had the vaccine and had injury where the Army has acknowledged that it's a vaccine injury at all? Do you know anybody personally?
No, I don't know anybody that's been acknowledged to have had side effects resulting from the vaccine. Only individuals that have, younger guys that have complained about chest pains and things like that. But I can't speak to that side of things. I actually know that story. I followed it closely. It's tragic. It feels like we're repeating a lot of the stories that you hear from the guys that went through Vietnam. Agent Orange, and the different things. It feels like that all over again. What is it? Gulf War syndrome. It seems like we continue to repeat history over and over and over again. And again, I was, at the time in March when General George called me, I was exceptionally grateful, and I was grateful. It felt like there were people that were trying to move things to help me, and I hope that that would be a catalyst for other individuals. And I would just urge General George and anybody listening to keep working towards a solution that will help individuals, not just like myself, but the young lady that was harmed by the vaccine, and other individuals whose careers were harmed. What people don't understand is there was a statistic released the last 4 years of the last administration, and I won't go too long-winded, but our suicide rate amongst those that were targeted either by legal means or by administrative means went up 10% and accounted for 30% of all active duty suicides. We've lost more to suicide, I believe, if I remember the statistic correctly, than we did in all of the years in Afghanistan and Iraq. That's tremendous. These are people that can never be restored. And so when you have commands that took actions, like a lot of them did, like I feel like happened in my case, that took good people that had dedicated their lives over 2 decades to serving what they believed was the honorable, patriotic thing, that deployed to Afghanistan, deployed to Iraq, and then you just strip everything from them. Where do they go from there?
Exactly. Exactly right. That's not even a side issue. It's an issue that needs to be at top of mind and in our sight picture at all times. The suicide issue, especially under these conditions, my friend. Well, let's take a question from the audience. Go ahead, Sean.
We have Wib, sir.
Thank you, Shell. Thank you, Colonel. Thank you, Warren. Today, you have introduced to me a new term, unlawfully implemented. That was not in my oath. What is the difference between an unlawful order and an unlawfully implemented order? And is this splitting hairs? Is this the Department of Defense hedging and circling the wagons like you've been talking about?
As far as an unlawfully implemented order, I don't know if you can really delineate between something that's unlawfully implemented and just blatantly unlawful. Because if it's implemented it in an unlawful way, then it becomes an unlawful order. It crosses that barrier. And so I believe in the case of the COVID-19 mandates in the military, it was Secretary Austin that issued the mandate. It was not the President of the United States. Therefore, it became unlawful because as far as I understand the regulations, the Secretary of Defense cannot mandate an experimental or emergency use substance, that it has to come directly from the President of the United States, which is reserved for moments when it is absolutely necessary to maintain the force strength. And in this case, we were not, we were winding everything down. We were not in a place or a position where it would be required that we be forced to take by the President of the United States to take anything that was authorized through emergency use authorization. And therefore, it was Secretary Austin that gave it. And Secretary Austin was not an individual. Either he did not understand or he did not care what the regulation and the law was. And so I wish he would speak for himself. But it seems like, just like now, it seems like things kind of go silent and you don't get those answers that you're looking for.
Yeah, because they're trying to protect themselves. Look, Secretary Hegseth has verbally said it was an unlawful order, and then in one of his second memo, he said it was unlawfully implemented. And let me just add my 2 cents worth there. Remember at the beginning of the show when I showed Pete Chambers, he was talking about he was ordered not to, he was told by command, there will be no religious accommodations, there will be no medical exemptions. That is an unlawful order, unlawfully implementing, even if the order turned out to be lawful that Austin gave, which it wasn't, that would be a definition of unlawfully implemented. And that's just one of them. Using the UCMJ criminal system to punish people for submitting a religious accommodation after the fact is another reprisal, which is an unlawful action. Well, I got one more question here from the audience. Let's go ahead and take that. We have the time and give them an opportunity. Go ahead, Shel.
We have Matt, sir.
Hey, Shel. Hey, Colonel Maness. I guess my question would be who, and forgive me if you guys have addressed this already, who specifically is holding up the implementation so that Brandon, so that you can get back into the Army, and what? Obviously, you want to be reinstated, but what are your plans once you get back in, if any?
I'm still in. So if I was to be restored, I would absolutely honor the promise that I made to General George. I respected him when he was the I Corps commander. I have to believe that he's trying to do the right thing now. I would absolutely, because when he offered to make my career whole, it came with the promise that I would help make the careers of others whole, that I would help him implement that. He talked about how busy he was with the Army modernization process, which is important, that we need to move towards that and move towards implementing a more streamlined, more efficient process to all levels of the Army. And in this case, I really believe that it's the BCMR process that's the linchpin in all of this. We're talking about lawyers and individuals involved in the legal side of things. And if there's one thing that seems certain, it's that over the last 4 years, the Army took on a more investigative lawfare culture. It was more concerned with those things than it was with implementing policies that would increase efficiency and increase lethality. People don't remember or don't understand that the purpose of the military is not for social experimentation. It is absolutely 100% to seek out, close with, and destroy the enemies of the United States. That is our purpose. We're supposed to be warriors on a battlefield, not warriors in a social justice fight, not guinea pigs in an emergency use experiment. We are meant to be lethal, whether that's as an aviation warrant officer, whether that's an infantry officer, an infantry soldier, an enlisted individual. That is our purpose. And that is the purpose that I would like to see the Army return to. And I believe, from what General George told me, that's exactly what he's working towards, is returning efficiency and lethality to the United States military and the Army in his case. And in the case of Secretary of Defense the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, he has also voiced that exact thing, that he wants to return the military to lethality, to root out DEI and these different things. But then I know Sam Shoemate, who's with Our Country, Our Choice, leaked a memo where an individual that represents the Army in a legal capacity, wears the uniform, used the term malicious compliance and urged those in her office to exercise malicious compliance. I'm sure that anybody that's listening can understand what it means to exercise malicious compliance. And so maybe that's what we're seeing in these BCMR rulings, things being drug out. Maybe it's just we need to remove that. Maybe Secretary Hegseth needs to go in and just with the broad brush fix this. Maybe a couple of people escape and get through the cracks and should not have been pardoned or should not have received some sort of amnesty or had their rank returned. But it's better to let a few get through than to completely and totally squash thousands.
Yeah. I agree with you. And I think there is a level of malicious compliance because we saw it in the first Trump administration, Brandon, and that's unfortunate. It's unfortunate that the timeline is what it is. The administration's moving very fast, which we're all very grateful for, and very grateful for the leadership out of the SecDef's office and the president's command and everything. But the system is just not built to get more of the right people in place at the right time, and that's why getting people like you back in the seat, so to speak. And this, you're an easy one. You could be given the task of organizing the board of review for every record immediately. If Secretary Hegseth or Secretary Driscoll, Secretary of the Army, would just take action and do it quickly and remove this stuff from your record, put you back on status, and give you the job that you've offered to do. And that's what we're going to ask for, and hopefully we can get that done. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope this helps get your story out. Good luck. Thank you for your service to our country, my friend. And Monday, folks, is More War Monday. L. Todd Wood from CDM Press. We got to talk about Ukraine again because all hell's breaking loose again over Ukraine. And there's a lot of information out there that's not congruent with peace through strength and the president's policies that we're seeing. I'll see you then on the Rob Maness Show.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Mission for Freedom, where myself and my wonderful friend, sister in Christ, and a brilliant woman, Miriam Shaw, will bring you what we can into understanding of, I think, life through lens of one new Christian and one daughter of a pastor. Hi, Miriam. How you doing?
Hi, Inez. Happy Thursday to you. You can say an old Christian, an old lady. That's fine. I can take it.
You do realize we're on air on camera, and my gray hair is absolutely outdoing your old lady. Just saying.
Well, you still have less than I do. I just fake it. So I dye it real well.
Wait, is that even possible to have less than, like more than this? It's all of it. Well,
Yes,
I did dye it
it's
recently.
possible.
So it's regrowing.
Well,
Wow.
it's still beautiful.
Well, thank you. So are you. Here's the thing. Let's tell our audience the truth because that's what we do here. Guys,
That's right.
it's been such a wonderfully crazy day on my end. Right now, since this morning until now, I have produced 2 shows. I've been on 4 shows. This is the 5th on air. I have translated a 4.5-minute video, subtitled it, put it up. And because Miriam is always ready to put up with my madness, she's like, whatever you want to do on the show, let's do it. I'm like, okay. We have no prep for today. We're just going. As promised, we're going to address your questions, your comments, your concerns, your countering whatever we're saying, whatever it is. So hop on all the comment sections, which I should probably tell you where we are. We are live on Worldview Tube. You can find us on worldviewtube.com or across platforms of X, Facebook, YouTube, Rumble, of Worldview Tube. We're also live on X America News. You can find us on their Rumble, YouTube, and X account. We are live on my platforms, Rumble, YouTube, Facebook. That's all I can think of. And then also Mission for Freedom on YouTube and Rumble. That is plenty of platforms. My eyes right on the screen. I'm going to look that way to see all your comments. But we're going to wing it. So let's wing it, Mary.
Hey, we joke, guys. We literally say this as soon as we get off air or when we have those marathon phone conversations. We literally say, we should have recorded this. This is so good. People would want to hear this. So sometimes I think the more off the cuff conversation you have, sometimes it's not as scripted and it can be more real and maybe more relatable. It might sound like a conversation you have with your family or friends. So I think this is going to be a really great show. And Inez is in the thick of the investigating, the reporting, and there is so much going on. And I think that the topic that we're going to talk about today, or just with you all and have you all weigh in, Inez, I'd love for you to introduce that. We always talk about truth as it relates to anything, but I mean, it's so incredibly crazy how twisted everything is right now. And you don't even know what you can believe. And so that's why on Tuesday, when we talked about knowing the Holy Spirit, hearing his voice, the Bible says that the Holy Spirit is truth, and using him and prayer, and then good research and listening to Mission for Freedom, Live Up to Freedom, and listening to Inez and subscribing to her Substack and getting truth. It's so important that we have these truth lenses in front of our eyes so that we can see these world events and these things through those lenses. So Inez, I'd love for you to just kind of set up what we're going to talk about today.
Yes. So here's what we will talk about. I should give a back story, Miriam. I have been doing my very best as a human to stay in prayer, as you know, Miriam, during these 2 weeks. And again, I said this on another show. I want to repeat. I'm not asking for pity. I'm not asking for free pass. Always hold me accountable because of our audience is why I have achieved the level of investigative journalism I have, because they always held me accountable. Even if I had a grammar error, they came at me. So I'm not asking for a free pass. What I'm trying to say is it's been a rough 2 weeks as a person, as an Iranian, as an American, as a Christian. It's just sorting through the differences, trying to stay in the middle of it without being in the middle of it has been a challenge. And not to sound cliche or don't care, Miriam, if there was ever in my life that Jesus showed me that without him, nothing is possible, and with him, everything is possible, has been last 2 weeks.
Yeah. And what you said is so important. You are starting and the days and starting everything with prayer and connecting with your Father, the Spirit of truth, the truth. And then you're starting to investigate. And I truly believe with all my heart that he is leading you and guiding you into unadulterated, untainted truth.
And also, he has been, he knew. This morning, when I put out the morning prayer on Facebook and the verse attached to it, it was literally one of the 3 days in last 2 weeks that I woke up knowing what the prayer and the verse was going to be for today. Normally I wake up and I think and I pray over it. Today I woke up knowing, because it's like he knows. Listen, he knew us and what part of his plan we're going to play and who we're going to be when we were in our mother's womb. right?
Yeah,
Like,
Psalm 139. That's right.
yes, ma'am. And it's like he knew what's coming. He knew I'm going to have I have to dive in. And he knew on the positive side of how much support, love. I actually told somebody recently, Miriam, I had former allies, some people who had a fallout with me, reach out to me showing support. I had actual care packages delivered to my PO box. Personal people who had my address send it to my door. Like, it must be crazy. We want to make sure you're eating. We want to make sure. One of my very good friends sent me my favorite lotion, saying lots of typing going on. You need lotion on your hands. It was the core of support. As I have reconnected to some of the friends we have lost touch so many years. But then he also knew that the devil's going to come at me. He knew how much hate I'm going to get. He knew how much I'm going to be hit in all fronts. And it's like he kept bouncing it out. It's like they got so close and he's like, no, I'm here. Don't give it up. I'm here. Don't give it up. In so many simple ways. And by the way, I'm not sitting here just saying, he's sitting in front of me talking to me. That's not, before my words are twisted. It's the actions of the day. And all it takes, again, I'm ashamed to say it took me this long to learn it, or I had to go through this. And remember, this is one of the very few times of hardship for me since I was saved. So now looking at these hardships through a Christian point of view or lens is that, you don't even have to go in the corner and beg him to show up. Like, drops hints. Like, as I said, like that package arrives or that person calls you and it's like, hey, I got your back. Don't listen to the hate. Watch the support I'm pouring your way through my people. But then one interesting thing, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, we're the hands and feet of Jesus. We're the body of Christ. The Bible talks about that. And so this is Jesus loving on you in real time through his people. That's how we're disciples of Jesus. That's how we show his love. That's how we lead people to Jesus, is by sending a care package, by picking up the phone and saying, hey, the Lord put you on my heart. Are you doing okay? I love you. Here's some lotion. That is showing the love of Jesus. So I just think that is so beautiful.
Agreed. It's been wonderful. And I am going to keep my promise today. Shout out to Ian. Why did I mispronounce her name? I know Ian. Anyways, Ian on Facebook. Hello to you too. And Anna, yes, you did spell Miriam's name correctly. Good job.
Yay! You get a gold star because that hardly ever happens.
She definitely spelled both our names correctly. There's no E at the end of my name either. So good job, Anne, on YouTube. And then we have Joyce on YouTube. And then Anne says, it is such a fine line, especially trying to explain to others. So many titles thrown around, it gets so confusing. Exactly. And I have literally felt that very thin line so many times, especially when on air. Because when I'm writing, Miriam, I have the chance to reread it, correct it, catch the confusion. But when you're on air, being interviewed, it's like, go, 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 go. And it's like, before it comes out of my mouth, it's like he grabs, it's like, nope. That's what the truth is. It's like even some of the interviews in a loving way, but it's a debate. It's somebody's trying to prove you wrong. Right. If you go back and watch, I don't watch my shows, as you know, but I'm like, thank you, Jesus. I have achieved that level of trust in you that I don't even go crazy on these debates anymore. I just make my point.
I have to weigh in on this. This is really a big deal to me, actually, because I do watch your shows. And what I love about this most recent one, Inaz, is that, I mean, I know you're not Jesus, but you have the fruit of Jesus. You have the fruit of the Spirit, and not just through love and things like that, but you just sit there with your one arm up and your one arm over like that, and you listen. And what is so interesting about you, and I think really healthy people, and I'm not saying I'm terribly unhealthy, but sometimes, when we're in a debate, we're either listening and we're thinking of our next line to debate them, or we're actually listening to understand, to see where they're coming from. And Jesus, we saw that he was incredibly patient and even when right before he was crucified, when they were coming after him and he remained silent and he knew he needed to do that. Well, that's self-control. That's one of the fruit of the Spirit. And I've watched you not overtly be attacked, but be challenged, and you just sit there quietly, not smugly, but just quietly and listen. And I think that is the confidence we have in Christ when we know the truth, and the truth